Have you ever wondered who would still stand beside you if you had absolutely nothing left to offer? The loudest truths often echo in silence, not in applause, but in absence. You don't really know who's real until your value to them disappears. Let me tell you something about human nature, something most people don't realize until it's already too late. You don't truly know someone until you're no longer useful to them. When your hands are no longer full, when the phone goes quiet, when your name stops appearing in the spotlight, that is when their true character steps forward. Not when you're winning, not when everything's working, but when life slows down, when you're no longer the go-to person, when your season changes, and the lights dim, that's when the masks start to slip. You see, anyone can be nice to you when they need something. That part's easy. A compliment, a kind gesture, a friendly tone. Those are cheap when they're driven by self-interest. But what happens when the transaction is over? Watch closely. Watch what happens when you have nothing left to give. Watch when your calendar clears, when your title fades, when the invitations stop coming. That's when you begin to see the truth. That's the moment when the performance ends and the backstage motives come into focus. Because we live in a world where far too many relationships are built on transaction, not truth. People don't always love you for who you are. They love what you can do for them. They stay close as long as you're convenient, as long as you serve their ambition, as long as your presence benefits their image or advances their goals. But the minute you stop being useful, they fade. The calls stop, the smiles turn cold, the support evaporates, and suddenly, you see what you hadn't seen before. You weren't being loved, you were being used. That isn't love. It's not friendship, and it certainly isn't loyalty. It's manipulation, affection disguised as self-interest, usage wrapped in the costume of closeness. But don't let it break you. Don't let the truth make you bitter. Let it make you wiser. Because sometimes, God allows people to walk away, just to show you what they were standing on. He exposes what was hidden, not to hurt you, but to protect you from continuing to invest in something hollow. This is not punishment, it's preservation. God's not trying to break your heart. He's trying to free it from illusions, from false loyalty, from connections built on sand. So when you find yourself in a dry season, when the applause dies down, when the room is quiet, when people stop showing up, don't panic. Listen, because silence speaks, absence speaks, and in that stillness, you will hear the truth louder than ever. How someone exits your life will teach you far more than how they entered. Because if someone can walk away from you easily, they were never walking with you deeply. They were not rooted in your purpose, only circling your platform. And that's exactly why, after the mask falls, after the applause fades, you must not chase after shadows that were never meant to stay. Because when someone leaves after your usefulness ends, it's not a loss, it's a revelation. And more importantly, it's a redirection from God. Don't beg, don't plead, don't lower your value to make a temporary person fit into a permanent space in your life. Because when God removes someone, it's not rejection, it's protection wrapped in redirection. And sometimes the greatest blessing is not what He adds, but what He takes away. I've seen it too many times. People changing faces like changing clothes. One day, they're for you. The next, it's as if they don't even remember your name. And you're left blinking, wondering if any of it was ever real. That used to surprise me. Not anymore. Because over time, I've learned this. Real love is not proven in your presence. It's revealed in your absence. Ask yourself, who checks on you when you go quiet? Who still shows up when the crowd is gone? Who sees your worth when you're weary and have nothing left to offer? That's who you hold close. That's who you trust. Because true connection isn't based on performance. It's built on covenant. It's anchored in consistency. This is why discernment isn't optional, it's essential. Not everyone who claps for you is cheering. Not everyone who smiles is sincere. Some are just standing close enough to catch the blessing. But they have no intention of carrying the burden. And when the blessing no longer flows in their direction, their loyalty dries up too. That's when you learn the difference between presence and partnership, between association and affection. Because the truth is, you don't need a crowd. You need covenant people. People who love you for your scars, not your spotlight. Who don't just post about your success, but pray for your healing. Who don't run when things get quiet, but sit with you in the silence. You need people who stay when the miracles stop. When there's no show to watch, no reward to receive, just raw faith in the valley. That's character. That's commitment. That's what God honors. So if you're in a season where people are leaving, don't panic. Don't question your value. Don't let their exit make you forget your worth. Instead, recognize this. The light of your purpose will always expose the shadows around you. The brighter you shine, the more clearly you'll see who was only attracted to your glow, and who was truly connected to your soul. And if you feel like you're standing alone, you're not. You've never been. Because God stands with the pure in heart. He stands with those who walk with integrity, even when no one's watching. When people walk away, God walks in. When others let go, He holds tighter. You are not abandoned. You are being aligned. So don't fear losing people who were never meant to walk your full journey. Let them go with grace. Let them exit with peace. Because if their love was tied to your usefulness, then their absence is your blessing. You can tell a lot about someone by how they respond when you finally say, "That's enough." When you stop overextending. When you stop bending out of guilt. When you stop shrinking yourself to make them comfortable. That's when the truth surfaces. Not during the smooth times, but when you draw the line. When you protect your peace. That's when you discover, was this love, or was this control? Because here's what boundaries do. They don't push away good people. They only irritate those who were never meant to stay. That's the thing about convenience, it always comes at a cost. And the moment you begin to speak up for yourself, to honor your time, to protect your peace, you'll begin to notice something. A shift happens. Some people will quietly distance themselves. Others will subtly withdraw. Some might confront you outright and say, "You've changed." But what they really mean is, you're no longer easy to control. Because here's the truth. They were only ever comfortable when you were silent. They only stayed close when your boundaries were blurry, your needs small, and your voice tucked away. That's what boundaries do. They don't just define what you allow. They reveal what others have come to expect. And when you finally draw a line in the sand and say, "I won't allow this anymore," you're not just protecting your soul, you're exposing theirs. Those who truly love you, they'll pause. They might not understand right away, but they'll lean in, they'll adjust, they'll make space for your voice, because they value your presence more than your compliance. But the ones who are using your kindness like a cushion, they'll panic, they'll protest, they'll twist your growth into betrayal. They'll say things like, "You've changed," as if remaining stuck in a cycle forever is a badge of honor. They'll call you selfish, when really, you're being wise. They'll say you're being difficult, when really, you've just stopped being easily manipulated. Because here's what no one wants to say out loud. Your boundaries confront their entitlement. And entitled people don't like feeling powerless. But hear me clearly. Setting boundaries is not betrayal. It is not cruelty. It is not rebellion. It is an act of love. Love for yourself first, and then love for others, because you are teaching them how to treat you by the way you treat yourself. And if someone walks away simply because you stopped playing doormat, let them exit. You don't need to chase what was meant to end. God didn't give you a voice so you could stay silent in the presence of dysfunction. He didn't give you discernment so you could continue making excuses for emotional manipulation. I've watched this story play out again and again. Someone finds the courage to say, "This isn't working for me." They choose healing, they choose peace, they choose themselves, and suddenly, friends become strangers, family turns cold, co-workers grow distant, and it hurts. It hurts more than you imagined, because you thought the connection was built on care, on trust, on love, but what you now realize, it was built on your silence. And when the silence stopped, so did their loyalty. But it's in that pain that the lesson rises. You begin to see clearly. Love without respect isn't love, it's possession. Peace doesn't come from saying yes to everything. It comes from learning how to say no with grace and with strength. And most importantly, you start to understand that anyone who is threatened by your growth was never truly committed to your well-being. Boundaries test people. They test the depth of someone's heart. Say, "I need space," and watch who respects it and who resents it. Say, "I'm not okay with this," and see who listens and who gaslights. Those reactions aren't random. They're revelations, moments of truth that pull back the curtain and whisper, "Look, this is who they are," when you stop being convenient. But please, stay the course. Don't shrink back into old patterns just because it's familiar. Don't confuse someone's disappointment with your disobedience. You are not wrong for growing. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. And you are not unloving for finally loving yourself enough to draw the line. And if they walked away the moment you stopped giving, maybe that was the greatest gift they could have given you: clarity. Because until someone is faced with your limits, your no, your silence, or your absence, you don't really know who they are. It's easy to love someone when everything flows. But who's still there when the well runs dry? The truth is, the way someone handles your limits reveals everything about theirs. They may say you've changed, but often that just means you've stopped letting them cross boundaries they were never supposed to have access to in the first place. Boundaries, you see, are like mirrors. They reflect the maturity of the person facing them. A person with depth will adjust. A person with entitlement will retaliate. And that's where discernment becomes more than a spiritual gift, it becomes survival. In a world of counterfeit connection, you need more than just a soft heart. You need a wise one. Because what happens when your yes becomes a not anymore? What happens when you stop making excuses for their behavior? Stop laughing off their disrespect. Stop saying, "It's fine," when it's not. That's when masks fall. That's when the storm comes. But here's the beautiful irony: the storm doesn't destroy you. It reveals what needed to be washed away. You begin to see things clearly: who was there because they loved your heart, and who was just fascinated by your usefulness. Who celebrated your soul, and who only admired your shine. It's painful at first, because clarity often costs comfort. You lose the illusion, the fantasy, maybe even the history you shared with someone. But what you gain is far more powerful: the freedom to walk forward without dragging what was never real to begin with. Because let me tell you, when someone is no longer fed by your presence, and they walk away, don't beg them to stay. That was never love. That was a transaction. And you, my friend, are not a product. You are not a vending machine of support. Not a convenience store of affection. You are not built for one-sided effort and two-faced loyalty. You are built to be cherished, not used. To be chosen, not tolerated. And if someone can't love you when you have nothing to give but yourself, they were never worthy of who you are in the first place. So don't mourn what left you. Mourn the fact that you tolerated less than you deserved for as long as you did. But then, celebrate. Celebrate the peace that replaces the pretending. Celebrate the quiet that speaks louder than chaos ever could. Celebrate the version of you that is rising from this awakening, wiser, clearer, stronger. Because on the other side of loss is a deeper kind of love, the one you give yourself. The one God always intended for you to know. You see, some people only know how to support you when it's exciting. They only show love when it benefits them or when they're inspired. But the moment the energy shifts, the moment life demands something deeper, loyalty, sacrifice, perseverance, their affection vanishes into thin air. That's why you can't just listen to their words. You have to watch the patterns. Don't be fooled by emotional fireworks or those grand, one-time gestures. Love isn't proven in intensity, it's proven in consistency. Real love shows up again and again, even when it's not convenient, even when it's not fun, even when it costs them something. Anybody can run fast when the race is short, but real character is revealed in the marathon. If you truly want to know someone's heart, don't ask them questions, just watch how they act when things are no longer exciting. Watch them in the slow seasons, the mundane routines, the boring days. See how they handle your silence, your struggle, your stillness, because the ones who vanish during the quiet storms were never truly committed in the first place. But the ones who stay, they don't always make noise, but their presence is loud. Their faithfulness is their volume. It doesn't need to be flashy, because it's solid, dependable, and that kind of loyalty is priceless. God isn't moved by emotional hype, is not impressed with loud prayers if the heart behind him is hollow. He's looking for those who burn consistently, those who keep showing up even when the room is empty, even when nobody is clapping, those who stay faithful in the shadows, not just when the spotlight is on. Consistency may not always look powerful, but make no mistake, it is. It's the single mother who keeps praying even when her strength is gone. It's the husband who stays faithful during the dry seasons of marriage. It's the friend who keeps checking in even when you're too broken to reply. It's the mentor who keeps teaching even when no one says thank you. Those are the ones who carry true weight in the kingdom, not the ones who flash in and out of your life, but the ones who endure, who stand, who remain. And I know, it hurts when people you thought were permanent turn out to be seasonal. I know how heavy it feels when promises are broken, when words are empty, when actions contradict affection, and I know how easy it is to let that disappointment seep into your spirit, to make you question your worth. But hear me, what they did has nothing to do with your value. Their inconsistency doesn't diminish your dignity. It only reveals their character. So don't carry the blame. Don't wear the shame. Let it be a lesson, not a label. God allows people to walk in and out of your life for a reason. Not to break your heart, but to build your wisdom, to show you what consistency really looks like, to teach you the difference between presence and perseverance. And maybe, as you hear these words, you realize something deeper. Maybe you're not just thinking about others, you're thinking about yourself. Maybe you've started things with passion and let them fall away. Maybe you've loved on impulse, but not with intention. Maybe your loyalty has been fueled by excitement, not endurance. If so, don't be discouraged. Be honest, and let that honesty become the doorway to your own transformation. That's not weakness, that's awareness, that's growth. Because the moment you recognize where you've fallen short is also the moment you're empowered to rise. This isn't about guilt, it's about grace. It's about letting God meet you in your inconsistency and show you how to walk in steadfastness. See, we're all tempted to run when things get hard. We all have moments where our motivation fades, where the emotions cool down, and the excitement wears off. And in those moments, we face a choice, to retreat or to remain. And if you're honest enough to admit you've been inconsistent, you're also brave enough to become consistent. Consistency isn't born from perfection, it's born from decision. From choosing every day, even in small ways, to show up when it's hard, to try again when you've failed, to follow through when no one is watching. That's how strength is built. That's how trust is formed. That's how legacies are written, not in big, grand gestures, but in quiet, daily faithfulness. You don't have to make a spectacle. You don't need to impress anyone. You just have to be faithful to what God gave you. Stay when others walk away. Keep praying when it feels like nothing is changing. Keep loving when it's not reciprocated. Keep believing when the promise still looks distant. That's the power of consistency. It moves mountains over time, one faithful step at a time. And maybe, just maybe, the people who hurt you weren't there to destroy you, but to show you what not to become. Maybe their absence isn't just a wound, maybe it's a window, revealing to you the type of person God is calling you to be. Someone steady, someone anchored, someone trustworthy. Because when you decide to become consistent, not just with others, but with yourself, with your calling, with your faith, you become the kind of person people can count on. And more importantly, the kind of person God can trust with more. Because He knows you won't give up when it gets uncomfortable. He knows you won't walk away when it gets heavy. He knows that you've been tested by inconsistency, and instead of becoming bitter, you chose to become better. So if this message is stirring something in you, don't run from it. Let it challenge you, let it refine you, and let it call you higher. Because this world has enough people who start strong and fade fast. What we need now, what God is raising up, are people who endure. People who finish well. And the journey to that kind of life? It begins not in a crowd, not on a stage, not with applause. It begins in private, in the unseen places, where God builds your character in the quiet. Because it's in the silence, not the spotlight, where the strongest foundations are laid. And speaking of foundations, what happens when the very people you built your trust on suddenly shift? When those who once promised to stay begin to slowly step away? Let's talk about what that silence actually reveals in the next part. Alright, this is your moment to shift. God isn't asking for perfection, He's asking for direction. Begin again. Be the kind of person who finishes what they start. Be the one who stands firm when the winds begin to blow. Your greatest impact won't come from intensity. It will come from integrity, the quiet strength of choosing what is right. Over and over again, because in the end, anyone can shine once, but it's who you are day after day that reveals your truest self. Some people treat kindness like weakness. They mistake gentleness for gullibility. They confuse patience with permission. And if you let them, they'll keep taking from you, until all that's left is your exhaustion and your confusion. That's why one of the greatest tests of someone's character isn't how they treat you when you're strong, but how they treat you when you're kind. Something strange happens when you're quiet, when you listen more than you speak, when you extend grace, when you let things go out of love or respect. Some people misread that. They assume you're unaware. They assume you don't see what's happening. They believe they've got the upper hand just because you didn't call them out. But what they fail to understand is this: silence isn't always ignorance. Sometimes, silence is wisdom. Sometimes, it's restraint. Sometimes, it's strength holding itself back. The way someone handles your kindness says everything about their integrity. It shows whether they are honest when no one is watching. It reveals if they honor the gift of your presence or take it for granted. A person of character won't exploit your patience. They'll protect it. They won't drain your energy. They'll match it. They won't take your love for granted. They'll meet it with responsibility. But those without character, they use your kindness like currency, a free pass to behave however they like without consequence. They lean on your forgiveness not as healing, but as habit. And they'll keep testing your limits, over and over again, until your soul is worn thin and your peace has disappeared. So let me say this to you clearly: just because you're kind doesn't mean you owe anyone unlimited access. Just because you forgive doesn't mean you should keep placing yourself in harm's way. Some of the most dangerous people in your life aren't the ones who hurt you once and left. They're the ones who hurt you little by little, while hiding behind your compassion. They're the ones who know you'll give them another chance, and another, and another. So they never change, because they never had to. Your kindness became their shelter, but never their transformation. And I'm not saying you should lose your kind heart. No, don't let this world convince you to harden just because someone mishandled your softness. Because in the next part, we'll talk about the most important truth: how to remain kind without becoming a victim. How to protect your light without losing it. How to keep a tender heart, but with firm boundaries that shield your soul. For the solution isn't to stop loving. No, the answer is to be wise about where and to whom you plant your love. Be kind, yes, but also be clear. Be generous, but stay grounded. Love deeply, with intention, but never abandon yourself in the process. Because sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is stop allowing people to use your compassion as a free pass for their chaos. Let's be real, God didn't gift you a gentle spirit just so it could be trampled on. He gave you that heart so you could reflect His nature. And even He, our loving, merciful, patient God, sets boundaries. Even He says, "That's enough." Even He withdraws His presence when grace is continually rejected. So when you're dealing with someone who repeatedly takes your goodness for granted, don't let guilt keep you in chains. Don't let the fear of being labeled mean or selfish hold you back from walking away. If someone is making withdrawal after withdrawal and never making a deposit, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, you owe it to yourself to close the account. Being kind does not mean being naive. It means you see clearly, and you still choose love. But here's the thing about real love: it always comes with truth. And the truth is, if someone can continuously disrespect you and still feel comfortable in your presence, then your silence has become their permission. Let that settle. You are not weak for being kind. In fact, you are incredibly strong. But real strength doesn't always look like endurance, it often looks like boundaries. Strength says, "I will love you, but I will not let you damage me." Strength says, being Christ-like doesn't mean being crushed. Strength says, I can still reflect grace and walk away at the same time. Not everyone deserves front row access to your heart. Some people need to admire you from the balcony, because they've shown they can't handle being up close. And let me tell you this with all the love I've got: when you do pull back, when you finally put limits in place, the same people who once drank freely from your cup without ever filling it, those people will say, "You've changed." Let them say it. Let them whisper. Let them judge. Because what they're really saying is, "You stopped letting me use you." That's not your burden to carry. That's not your shame. That's their mirror, not your truth. You are not on this earth to be drained by people who only know how to take. You are here to reflect the love of God, but to do so with boldness and balance. That means you love from a place of strength, not survival. That means you serve from clarity, not chaos. That means you give not because you're manipulated, but because your soul is aligned with purpose. And if someone ever asks, "Why did you stop giving so much?" look them in the eyes and say, "Because I finally saw what you were doing with what I gave." You see, you can tell a lot about a person not just by how they handle pain, but how they handle power. Not the kind of power that comes with money or titles or social platforms, no. I'm talking about the quiet kind of power. The moment when someone holds influence over your vulnerability. The moment they could help or hurt, heal or humiliate, cover or expose. Some people think character is only tested in hardship. And that's true. But I'm telling you, character is also revealed when someone's in control. And that's what we'll explore next, how the heart reacts when it holds power over someone else. Because your love, your trust, your kindness, they are all forms of power. And what people do with that power reveals everything. And that's exactly where real character comes to light, not when people are applauding. Not when they're getting something in return. But in the quiet, ordinary moments when no one's watching. Because how someone behaves when there's nothing to gain is the clearest window into their soul. You see, if someone exposes your flaws, throws your weaknesses into the spotlight just to hurt you, don't feel pressured to retaliate. You don't need to lower yourself to their level, to sling back the same mud they threw at you. Ask yourself this one powerful question: will my response reflect my healing or my hurt? Because healing responds differently. Healing doesn't need to scream, to shame, or to sting. Sometimes the greatest act of revenge isn't vengeance, it's peace. Sometimes the most profound response isn't words, it's silence. And often, the most powerful move you can make isn't striking back, it's walking away with your dignity fully intact. You don't have to flex to prove you've grown. You don't have to win the argument to show your worth. Because people with true confidence don't seek validation through conflict, they find it in their calm. They let time reveal what truth cannot hide. They let God vindicate what man tries to distort. Your integrity is your armor. Your self-restraint is your quiet strength. And the way you treat someone when you have every reason not to, that's your testimony. That's who you truly are when the ego is silent and your spirit is leading. Don't trade your peace for a moment of pride. Don't exchange your wholeness for an ego boost that fades. You were not created for petty power plays, you were created for purpose. You were created to build, to elevate, to protect, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's undeserved. Because one day, you'll find yourself holding the cards. Someone who once hurt you might need your help. Someone who let you down may fall at your feet. And in that moment, the question is not, do they deserve my mercy? The question is, what kind of person do I want to be? When someone who failed you is at your mercy, don't let anger write the story. Let grace lead your response. And if you really want to test someone's character, don't watch how they treat their boss or their audience. Watch how they treat the janitor, the server, the elderly, the awkward, the ignored, those who have nothing to offer and no power to repay. That's where the real story begins. Because this world idolizes status, clout, and curated images. But God, He watches the quiet moments. He sees how you act when no one's clapping, when there are no cameras, no likes, no praise, only you, your decisions, and your heart. And let me say it plainly, character isn't seasonal. It's not something you turn on when it benefits you and off when it doesn't. If you're warm to the powerful but cold to the powerless, that's not kindness. It's calculation. That's not compassion. It's convenience. You can't say you love God while you ignore the broken. You can't preach grace while passing judgment on the struggling. What you do in secret, how you treat the ones with nothing to give, that's who you really are. It's in those silent moments, when no one is watching, when there are no cameras, no applause, that a person's true character begins to speak the loudest. Those who live by genuine values don't need a spotlight to do what's right. They don't need an audience to be kind. They don't need a reward to show compassion. They stop, they give, they care, because their hearts remember what it felt like to be overlooked, to be invisible in a world obsessed with performance. They are the ones who will stop by the roadside to wrap a coat around a shivering stranger. They are the ones who help the elderly cross the street, who quietly pay for a hungry child's lunch without ever reaching for a camera. Because for them, kindness is not a strategy. It's a lifestyle. It's not a publicity tool. It's a principle woven into the fabric of who they are. While the world chases metrics and fame, chases influence, clout, and recognition, these people walk a different path. They sow goodness into the soil of ordinary moments. They don't crave the spotlight. They may not hold powerful titles or speak with booming voices, but their hearts run deep. They remember names. They arrive early. They treat the janitor with the same dignity as they would a CEO. That is power. That is strength. That is legacy. And let me ask you this: who are you when there's nothing to gain? Who are you when no one is watching? Can you still be gracious when no one gives you credit? Can you still serve when there's no applause? That's where your gold is. That's where eternal things are built. Because often, God places people in our path not to test them, but to test us. That person who can't repay you, that's your opportunity to plant seeds heaven can see. That child who just needs encouragement, that's your moment to speak life. That elderly man who simply needs someone to slow down and care, that's your chance to reflect the heart of Christ, not through words, but through action. Don't let this world fool you into thinking greatness is built on platforms. True greatness is revealed in how you treat the least of these. In how you talk to someone who can't help your career. In how you carry yourself in rooms where there's no spotlight, no reward. Because in the end, that's what echoes beyond this life, not your resume, not your accomplishments, but your kindness, your humility, your love. And when the time comes for you to stand before the one who sees it all, he's not going to ask you how many followers you had. He's not going to ask what deals you closed or what influence you carried. He's going to ask, how did you treat the ones who had nothing to offer you in return? Because the truest measure of character is how you treat those who cannot repay you, not how you behave in the spotlight, but how you love in the silence. So now, as we bring this message to a close, take a moment to reflect not on how loud your life is, but on how deeply it's rooted. The true weight of your character will never be measured by titles, achievements, or applause. It will be revealed in how you treated the unseen, the unheard, the unnoticed, because in the eyes of heaven, the greatest among us are not always the ones in the spotlight. They are the ones who stop in the hallway, who kneel beside the broken, who give without ever keeping score. The world may not always recognize that kind of greatness, but God does, and in the end, His recognition is the only one that truly matters. If this message stirred something in your soul, if it opened your eyes, or reminded you of who you are, then don't let it end here. Right finger subscribe to this channel, Dr. G_check_official journey success, where truth is spoken, healing is honored, and character is championed. Thumbs up like this video if it spoke to your spirit. Repeat button, share it with someone who's quietly trying to stay kind in a world that keeps trying to harden them. Because this is more than just content. This is a calling. And you, my friend, are part of it. Until next time, walk in quiet strength. Live with fierce love. And never forget, who you are when no one is watching, is who you really are.